Good morning, viewers, and welcome to the Economy and Politics Show today, Wednesday, 30th December 2020, just 48 hours, heading into another interesting year, 2021. We want to take a review of activities in the micro, small, and medium enterprises in the year 2020. We believe that MSMEs play a critical role in any economy in the globe, and Nigeria is no exception. With us to take a quick look at this is Mr. Ayo-Bankole Akintujoye. He's the convener of the Lagos SME Bootcamp. Nice to have you, Mr. Ayo, and thank you for taking out some minutes of your time, a busy schedule as the year wraps up. Thank you.
It's good to be here again, Otto. Well done. Good job.
Thank you. So let's quickly just take a wrap on snapshot of the MSMEs interventions in 2020. This was shaped by the COVID-19 pandemic, which had a wide effect on businesses. And we also had the NSAS protests, which the fallouts being hijacked by hoodlums led to a lot of businesses having their concerns affected, destroyed, and they had to start from the scratch. In overall, how would you describe the approach to interventions from the government, fiscal, monetary, and even private sector?
Yeah, I would say that, the government did its bit. We had, very reactive, even though not proactive, but at least we had very good responses from both the Federal Executive Council, the National Assembly, several states. I would say that I would give them a pass mark in terms of responses. But as usual, as I always say, can we give them a pass mark in terms of execution success? That's another conversation, because the conversations with MSMEs on the streets show that very minimal, very few of them benefited from the various hundreds of billions that were spent for various interventions. So the issue still remains that how can we improve on our implementation methodologies such that we increase the impact of all of these interventions, both for this year and for 2021, which there are already feelers that the second wave may lead to another crisis. So yeah, I would give them a pass mark, but for the initiatives, but I would say that a lot more could have been done with the implementation.
Yes, and that brings me to something that was raised for the year as challenges that the MSMEs face, which it was expected, like your colleagues who are in the MSME space, who consult for them, who advise. They also felt that a lot should have been done around data gathering in terms of the MSMEs, particularly micro businesses, getting more of the support and funding, because every time we have interventions, it's always going to the small, the medium, large enterprises in the country.
Yes, you see, the issue with data and data aggregation, especially with regards to MSMEs, remains a fundamental problem that MSMEs face. We have 41.5 million MSMEs in Nigeria. A majority of them are in the informal space, right? Being in the informal space technically means that you do not have data on the activities of these guys. You do not know where they operate. You do not know how they operate. They are not registered. They do not have bank accounts, right? So how do you reach these people? And interestingly, they provide 84% of our employment, meaning that amongst all total Nigerians that are employed, 84% of them work within this space. So if your interventions do not hit hard at these guys, if you are unable to gather data to ensure that you reach them where where they play and how they play, your interventions will most likely would have failed. Now, how can we improve data gathering around these guys? I have always said that one effective channel is to use informal organizers or aggregators of these MSMEs, the clusters. Where do they sit? What types of sustainable partnerships can government have with these hubs, these MSMEs hubs, these cooperative societies, these thrift societies, and other communities that organize them, market women associations, transport unions, and other influencers that regularly have things to do with MSMEs, but I've not seen sufficient use of these guys. If you are going to support MSMEs, I mean, 75% of SMEs have startup funding with less than 10 million in capital. I mean, that's not a lot. So they are the ones that will need this money. If you end up giving your interventions to guys who are already in the medium space, who already have bank accounts, who are already doing transaction volumes of well over 200 million, then you haven't done a lot. You haven't done much to really support those who need it, right? So government has to begin to painstakingly identify these various cluster groups in the agri space. A lot of such has been done in the agri space, but how much have we done in the beauty space, in the fashion space, in wholesale and retail, in construction support, in food? You drive from Lagos to the north, you see a lot of small and medium enterprises selling things on the road, food items, beauty stores. How is government able to reach all of these guys? How can we mobilize them to ensure that they whatever government is doing gets to this woman and man on the street who truly need these things? SMEDAN recently started collecting data of MSMEs, but again, that activity sort of the tempo around that activity sort of died down. I hope that they can intensify efforts and engage the real influencers and aggregators or organizers of MSMEs, so that the data that you have is not colored and influenced. And when you also get this data, I hope that it is not used for clamping down on them for taxes and levies and regulation, over regulation, as against helping them grow, as against wealth generation.
Yeah. That's very clear and instructive. Very clear that we need to leverage the hubs, the clusters, and even associations, particularly to reach out and get correct data and have a real intervention that impacts even the micro businesses. But let's look at activities in your space. I know the Lagos SME Bootcamp have the forum this year, which we covered, and of course, key takeaway, even this year we had the MSME standards, which we're involved in, was the need to leverage these clusters to get consultancies, assistance to micro businesses and the small medium enterprises who need assistance in records and structure so that they can scale up to become competitive. What other things for you stood out in terms of activities of your cluster and other groups and clusters this year?
I think what stood out for me this year, I will start with what did not happen. What stood out for me this year that did not happen was, the suspension of the Tony Elumelu Foundation intervention. It was, that's probably one of Nigeria's, if not Africa's, biggest MSME support platforms. And because of COVID, it was suspended, and I think that really impacted a lot. Because 5,000 or thereabout US dollars to a couple of hundreds of people is a whole lot, in this economy. So that was really painful. Yeah. But on the good side, we had the largest gathering of participants, that we've ever had for the past 3 years that we've been running Lagos SME Bootcamp. We had about 1,300 SMEs participate, and it was an excellent session. We also had MSME Standards do an amazing event for MSMEs, where we discussed the impact. We discussed with amazing individuals. MTN also did a web program, all-encompassing program, where they trained MSMEs. They provided them with some sort of funding, provided them with some sort of technical support. So there are so many platforms like that happened during the year, and of course, state governments also mobilized, themselves to do various to provide various platforms for supporting MSMEs, and I think those really help. But we know that a couple of the banks also, one of the top 5 banks set aside about 50 billion, especially for MSME intervention. Yeah, so I think a lot of things, a lot of these hubs and accelerators really helped cushion the impact of the COVID, amongst MSMEs. Again, we can only appeal that more people come forward to provide this support, because really, I was talking to a major player in the consulting space yesterday, and he said that his father's MSME business helped raise 5 kids to school, and those 5 boys now have various businesses of their own. So the impact of MSMEs, it can't be overemphasized, and we can only appeal that more people come in, join us, to continue to impact this very cogent sector of the economy.
Yes, I really like one of the key takeaways at your SME Bootcamp Forum, where there's a need to, which also keyed into the MSME standards, where there's a need for more partnership with consultants in the area of like tax and finances, records, and structure, so that like I said earlier, they can scale. Because the intention is that you don't just stay at one point, you scale to really achieve impact, and this is across value chains. Like you rightly identified, agriculture.
Yes.
But let's look at regulation this year and policy for MSMEs. We saw a lot in terms of the CAMA 2020 being signed, also even the Finance Bill, Finance Act 2020, even the one that's been pushed to the National Assembly, which is passed. It shows again some big support to the MSMEs in terms of tax waivers, among others. For you, when you look at the whole gamut of it, what are those key positives and still the outstanding ones that needs to be addressed, particularly speaking to the Corporate Affairs Commission's role in enhancing business registration, where the president gave that order that they should increase and what they should do better?
Yes, I would say that this year has been a big win of a year for MSMEs from a regulation standpoint. I think that one of the biggest upsides of the Buhari administration has been the regulations that has come out to ease the burden, especially of taxes and registration on MSMEs. The Finance Act, as you're well aware, came up with a lot of waivers for filing for VAT, for company income tax if you earn below 25 million per annum. The revised CAMA suspended, a lot of archaic regulations. Now you don't need to, you don't have to use an audited account if you are a micro business or a small business. You don't need to audit your account, on an annual basis. You don't have to conduct a physical meeting of your board of advisors. You don't have to use physical signatures. Electronic signatures are now allowed. So there are lots of things. You can now register online. You don't have to. You don't need two. Prior to now, you required at least 2 directors to register your business, which defies logic, because majority of MSMEs are sole proprietorship. So what has then happened is that most people who needed to register companies would have to either use a fake name or just put a proxy, right? So now that has been taken out of the picture. So more people coming into the formal space, they don't necessarily have to register as business name. They can now register as proper, limited liability companies, and will meet values to government. So that, from those ends, were absolutely beautiful. But there's also, something significant, which is the reopening of our land borders, right? You see, the closure of land border as a policy is one of the most ridiculous policies I think that we've ever had in this country, because you can't close a land border as a measure to curb smuggling. What's the job of customs? What's the job of immigration? What's the job of all the border patrol guys at the border? So you can't kill businesses who regularly need to import raw materials, have to export across the border. You can't kill them because of the inefficiencies of your own agencies. So I'm happy that a year plus after, unfortunately, thousands of jobs had already been lost, but at least those borders are now opened. Businesses can go back to trading across you know that Benin Republic here is a huge trade partner, especially for small and micro businesses. So that was a good one. There's also the emergency economic stimulus bill that was passed by the House of Rep that granted tax rebates of 50% of the actual amount due or paid, as pay as you earn tax to Nigerian companies if you are able to retain all your employees from 1st March to December 2020. So that was a good one for curbing layoffs, and unemployment. There was also suspension of import duties on medical equipment, supplies, protective gears, all of those things required for, COVID-19. That was done for 3 months, and then it was extended again by the minister, up until September. I mean, there are a couple of things. FIRS did announce a lot of things which we've already discussed. There were waivers on penalties and all of that. State governments also tried, but I think most significant is Bayelsa State that gave a 50% discount on PIT, personal income tax, due to COVID-19. Other states tried, but theirs was more on waiving penalties, adjusting, amending filing dates and all that, Kebbi, Lagos, Ogun, and the likes. But I think those who slashed personal income taxes, should get the biggest kudos in all of this.
Yes, very well noted. Now let's look at 2021. Of course, one of the big stories is that January 1st, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement would take effect. But what is the key outlook for MSMEs in 2021? You also mentioned the concerns around second wave of COVID-19.
Yes. Outlook for 2021 for Nigeria has, our GDP has been estimated to, Nigeria is expected to recover, prior to this threat of the second wave. We're expected to recover from this recession, and 2021 Nigeria is expected to grow between 1.9 to 3%, depending on whose data you're looking at.
Yes.
But then the second wave then came up. You know that we are largely dependent on oil for government revenues. So now we are again being threatened by the second wave. The second wave, governments are already shutting down. We have excess crude oil supplies from November already. And now we have to be looking for buyers. That's going to affect our FX supply. If it affects our FX supply, then there may be the forest scarcity that exists already, and the volatility in that space may increase. If it increases, it's going to affect MSMEs who are dependent on imports, irrespective of wherever you're importing from. If you have to change currency, then there most likely would be some sort of negative impact on your business. But let's even look into that. The budget, we have a $35 billion budget or thereabouts. But if you then look at the devaluation, you see that it's supposed to be a growth in our budget expenditure, but by the time you look at it critically against dollar value, you then see that at the end of the day, there will be nothing much to spend that would stimulate growth in the real sense of it, because out of a budget of about 13 trillion, you are already spending you are only spending about 3.8 trillion on capital expenditure that is expected to generate wealth, and then you are spending about 3 trillion, about almost the same, just 1 trillion short of what you are spending on capital expenditure on debt service. So we need an economy that works. We need a lot more deliberate and proactive attempts to manage the second wave of the COVID-19. We need to do a critical assessment of our own internal realities. What is the impact of COVID in actual numbers, in Nigeria, versus other environments? What is COVID as of today the biggest threat to our health, to the life of the average Nigerian? For example, is COVID a bigger threat than police extrajudicial killings? Is COVID a bigger threat than banditry? Is police a bigger threat? Is COVID a bigger threat, for example, than Boko Haram? So if we haven't taken a holistic approach, if we haven't declared state of emergencies in the Northeast, if we haven't declared state of emergencies in areas where hundreds are dying on a daily basis in order to curb these issues, then I don't think that a total lockdown, a second total lockdown to curb COVID-19, which is killing less than 0.1% of Nigerians, compared to other statistics, is going to be a good one, because we may not be able to recover from the effects, especially our MSMEs, from the effects of a second lockdown. So I do not think that there's a lot of, I expect that 2021 will be better, but hopefully the vaccine will quickly curb the second wave. And already, I don't know if you have seen the data, the graph that forecasts when the vaccine is likely going to come to Africa. It's still going to take a while. So I really hope that somehow the big donors, the Bill Gates and the likes, all these foundations are able to get us these vaccines quickly to Africa. Otherwise, for a shocker for 2021. And
a little bit of promise, we need to just hold that little corner that you said and leverage on it. And like you said, the vaccines, the impact of COVID-19 needs to be assessed holistically, and other issues, security concerns. But I still feel that there's a lot of room of optimism that things should get better with all factors laid. And businesses, I think, should show that resilience as we are known for in Nigeria. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ayo-Bankole Akintujoye. Thank you so much for giving us some minutes of your time. It's busy as we wrap up the year, and we just continue to have these conversations on enterprises, even in the new year. And wishing you all the best as we head into 2021. But of course, showing that 2020 was really an eventful one for the MSME space in the country. Thank you once again.
I wish you the best, Otto, and I look forward to more partnerships with ProShare and the Web TV family for our events in 2021. All
right, thank you very much. Thank you. And that'll be all for the
Politics show today. We looked at the micro, small, and medium enterprises activities and, of course, what to expect in 2021. This conversation can continue if you just go to our website, www.proshenji.com, and you go to the down part, the right-hand bar of the website. You will look at MSME Startup, MSME Policies and Regulations. Click on either of them. You'll see all the stories we had this year around MSMEs. A lot for you to learn from if you're holidaying, even still at work. You can read out some very interesting stories around how MSMEs navigated, particularly the COVID-19 pandemic and various interventions that government and private sector brought in on board during the period. And also, you can watch the videos on Web TV platform. Go to the economy and politics aspect and see all the videos that we had, discussions with Mr. Ayo-Bankole Akintujoye and other people in the MSME space. It's been an eventful year, and we're looking forward to much interesting 2021. To come your way again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day and stay safe.